Welcome to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast with your host, Adrian Fuller, language and communications expert for kids of all ages. On this podcast, we talk about speech, language, and all things happening with your child, giving you specific tactical information you can use to help your kids talk, listen, and thrive in their academic journey.
Welcome to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast. I'm Adrian Fuller, speech language pathologist, otherwise known as Miss A, the SLP. And always remember that this podcast is for parents and caregivers and even therapists. But we target your child's speech, language, and academic journey from toddlerhood to all the way through school. And so today I have a special guest with me, but before I do that and bring her on, I always like to start with a testimonial. And I've been covering maternity leaves in our clinic for the past month or two. And first of all, I'm like, bless all the moms, because gosh, it's a big load, and I recognize it. So I want to say I appreciate you, and you are the best thing for your child. But I have loved virtual speech therapy lately, and I had a little one that started off on my caseload. I'll change her name to Alexis, and she was a little bit challenging at first because she was young. So she started with me like in the clinic, when she was 2 or 3 years old. And so she was just not that interested in working on her expressive language yet, but we kept on it, and mom was very determined. So every year we kept at it on a weekly basis, and they've been very consistent. Well, now she's a virtual kid since the pandemic, and she just never stopped. And but I've noticed that her sentences are getting so much better. So in therapy, I bring up these 2 pictures that look about the same with a few subtle differences. And I'm like, Alexis, tell me the difference between the 2 pictures. And lately, the sentences have been, as the kids say, fire. They've been very good. And it's just really great to see a kid make such great gains with consistency. So if you are wondering if it's working, or if you're wondering, why am I doing this? I mean, because this mom comes home from work, 5:30, puts her kid on the virtual sessions. And so that is, a testament to her and just to consistency. So keep at it. So guys, today I have a special guest with me. She is a friend of mine. Actually, we were both teachers at the same time, not at the same school or anything, but we were both teachers, and I went the way of speech therapy and she went the way of administration. And so I want to welcome Dr. Nykowanna Sloan. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for joining me. And so today, guys, I want to talk about your child's journey after graduation, because Nikki, when Dr. Nykowanna, I had to slip up, but
it's okay.
We are total friends. But Dr. Sloan, when I was a teacher, I realized pretty quickly that college wasn't for all kids. I was a teacher of learning disabled kids, and I saw them struggle just to make it through high school. So some of our kids are just they're not lazy, guys. They're just frustrated at the end of that 12-year journey of just always struggling to keep up. Yeah. And so today I want to talk about some options for kids to college. And you have experience on both sides of the aisle.
I do.
You are a teacher, you're administrator. She's the vice principal of Osceola Technical College. And so, but she also has a child that went through the system, and so she has been on both sides. So first, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up where you are?
Okay.
Let's start there.
Okay, well, I am, like you said, I've been a lifelong educator. This is year 26 for me.
Woo!
Started out in the theater classroom and doing what I love doing, and that's sharing the beauty of the stage and all its facets to young people. And I was a very good disciplinarian. I had great classroom management, and one of my principals saw that and really pulled me in the direction of leadership. He pulled me out of the classroom kicking and screaming, but I went, became a dean, and really loved that aspect of structuring student behavior. Loved it. And so stuck with that, and it became my niche. And I went over into administration from there, and I'm still a strong disciplinarian, a strong and fair disciplinarian, I will say. I believe in behavior modification. I believe in proper consequences. I believe in the opportunity to restore yourself. And so I discipline with dignity and grace, lots of compassion. It's firm, but it's fair. And so that has been appreciated in many roles that I've had. And now I've excelled to the position of assistant principal of a technical college. I went from all high school experience to now dealing with adult students, and helping them find their pathway as well. So I'm loving that too.
Very cool. I would like to circle back. Gosh, I feel like we should have you on again, because I don't know, sometimes when I hear these harsh consequences that kids are getting in schools, I feel like
it's hurtful.
Fair? Yeah.
It's hurtful.
But I digress. But let's talk about right now the three options that a kid might have after they graduate high school. If they graduate high school, because that's a very real thing too. Yeah. Some of our kids are so frustrated for whatever reason. Yeah. They may not even finish. That doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes, but we need to I'd like to find and give solutions. So what are maybe a couple of options? We know that there's a military, but you need do you have to have it like a
sometimes
diploma?
Yes. Okay. Something that or an equivalent.
Yeah. Or an equivalent. Okay. But on that side, the technical side, what do we have here? We have vocational ed.
We have vocational ed. Most students, when they go through, first of all, I want to say this. When students don't graduate, there are so many reasons for that. And parents should not feel like a failure. Yeah. Nor should the student.
Correct.
A lot of times, a student's inability or lack of ability to complete high school in the designated amount of years is simply fatigue. They have been beat down. They have not felt the confidence to succeed. Some of them just haven't been given the proper supports to succeed, and with that is a mounting frustration that does not go away. And when that frustration reaches its point, students give up. And so they begin to act out. They begin to do anything but engage in education. They no longer see the value in it because it hasn't been valuable to them thus far. So parents, don't give up. It is not the end of the world. When a student doesn't do graduation in the 13 years that we, established or our system has established, it does not mean that it's the end of the world.
That's the truth.
Students can go from wherever they are and find a new trajectory that will support their life for the rest of their life. They just have to be guided in the right direction. And a part of that guidance is knowing the options that are available and presenting them as just that. They're options. They're not alternatives. When you list it or share it as an alternative, they still feel the failure of never having accomplished what was expected. If you put it in as an option, it becomes a pathway, like a student standing at a crossroad that gets to decide, I can take my life in any direction, and none of them are wrong, and no one is the best, and no one is going to get me any higher or anything that I want to be in any one of them. It then becomes a personal ownership where I can decide, this is what I want to do.
So just that little change in the wording from alternative to options just opens up horizons. I really, really love that. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about those options.
Okay. Before a student leaves high school, they begin what they call the plan, where they, most high school students, they have college and career coordinators at their campuses, or they have a guidance counselor, and they look at the hardcore things. They look at the data, they look at student past performance, they look at all these things to try to determine a good pathway to guide the student. A piece that's often missing is the student's desire. And when that conversation is actually had, which in all fairness, some guidance counselors are doing more counseling than they are guiding.
Yes.
And because just the way our society is, and with all the social emotional learning and just societal pressures that students are dealing with, they are doing a great deal more counseling. So I'm grateful for our social work now being actively engaged in our schools, our psychologists being actively engaged in our schools. It is just so incredibly important in building and rounding out that student. But when we get back to the academic side and how to guide them to what's best for them, the biggest part is to include them in that decision and don't allow the data to drive the course that you chart for a student. Allow them to have that input. Find out what their likes are. Find out what their strengths are. I was talking with a friend earlier, even today, about the ASVAB test and how it's such an underrated tool.
Excuse me, because we are trying to abolish a lot of acronyms.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
What does that mean? Well, we'll have to look.
I'll have to look that one up specifically, but what I can tell you it is a placement test that gauges the acumen of a student for military careers. So with the military being able to provide a plethora of employment, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, now we have the Space Force, all of those. So all of them come with a great many career choices that they can provide for students in training. That particular test gives them the opportunity to truly hone in on what skills they possess at a magnitude. So they can see at the end of that test, you were strong in communications, or you were strong in mathematics, or you were so strong in hands-on learning. And it better directs them to a career that facilitates that use of that love. So I love that test. I tell it to my students all the time, take it. I don't care if you're not interested in the military. Take it, because it's going to help you know more about you. And it's a piece of data that can be added to your previous test scores and all of this stuff that gives a more personal look at who you really are that you may not even be aware of, where your strengths lie. So I love that test.
And what's that test called? It's the ASVAB?
It's the ASVAB. I'd have to look it up to give you the
ASVAB as in boy. Okay.
ASVAB.
All right. Well, we all have phones. We can look it up. But it's good to know that there's options out there.
Exactly.
For our kids. And it just gives, when we have information, it just helps with the decision making. Instead of sometimes career planning can be feel like you're just throwing a whole bunch of spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
So
it's the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test.
And so
so it tells everything in the name, exactly what it does.
And when you take this test, you're not saying you're going to go into the military.
Exactly.
You just are getting information for yourself, guys. Okay.
Now, it is used for military entrance.
Yes.
And it is used for military placement. It's the test that I took that determined I should have been in military intelligence. And I just wanted 2 years. I just wanted to go in. So I took a job that was well beneath where I ranked. However, it let me know where I was strong at. And it let the military know where they could best, employ me as a soldier. But if you're not interested in the military, it is still a very telling test about what your aptitude is in a specific skill. It's an amazing test.
That's very, I didn't know any of this was used. And it would just be so, I don't know, I just thought you enlisted and then you had to go to boot camp and then you had to serve.
Oh,
but
it happens like that for some people. But if you know in high school, or if you're straight out of high school and you want to go into the military, the best thing to do is to take that test. So you can know what career best fits you. And don't just allow them to just, we're signing you up, you're going into infantry.
Right.
You could have the capacity to be something, not so hands-on, not so frontline. You could be military intelligence.
Yes.
You could be behind a desk and learning, the secrets and helping the military navigate through difficult places. your aptitude tells everything on where they can employ you. So it works for students that are non-military interested as well.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that. If someone wants vocational ed, that looks like...
That looks like a student going in and maybe being dual enrolled while they're in high school.
Okay.
Where they could potentially graduate high school and complete a certification program in a skilled career, such as plumbing, electricity, even nursing, licensed practical nursing, medical assisting, pharmacy tech. I shouldn't say pharmacy tech. There's just a bevy of them. They're the skilled workers that communities need that don't require 4-year degrees. Getting a 4-year degree in those skills only helps you further down the line, but getting the certification or a licensure at a 1 or 2 year program that you can either do while in school or immediately after school will get you immediately in the workplace. It will get you right out and employed and pursuing the actual career you're interested in without having to go get the 4-year degree, or maybe even while getting your 4-year degree. Whatever your choices are, depending on how high you want to go up in that particular career.
No, that's good to know. And then I believe, is there another technical education?
That is the technical education.
So vocational
yeah.
and technical
and
are the one.
Correct.
Okay, and so...
But there is one other that we were speaking of once before regarding voc ed. Voc ed is something for students that are a little more profound. Let's say our ASD or IND, I should say our autistic students that are on the spectrum for autism, or students that have the label of IND,
which is intellectually disabled.
Right, where they are not likely to be able to hold more than an entry-level job, but they can get them skills while in school. They do sessions where they go out with their teacher onto work sites and they learn the entry-level information at these particular career sites through business partners that have partnered with the school districts or even an individual school. I know we have a really nice one in the central Orlando area, and it's Clean the World. And Clean the World is a beautiful facility where they recycle soap. And all they do is, if you check into a hotel, you're at the Peabody, you check into the hotel, you never touch your soap, or you even use your soap one time and you leave it there. Some of these hotels have ability to collect all of those soaps, take them to Clean the World. Clean the World melts it down, cleans it through a purifying system, and then repackages it for homeless. They repackage it for community centers. They repackage it for displaced families during hurricanes or what have you, and they make care packages. So that particular company partners with a local high school. Those students are bused to their facility, and they're walked through how to do this process. So they may be sorting soap all day, putting the pinks with the pinks and the blues with the blues, whites with the whites, or what have you. And they're a part of that process. That is a volunteer basis, but they're getting those soft skills that can help them hold a, entry-level position in that particular field. And such is the same as other places. There's a Publix that does it, other grocery stores that do it. I know we go shopping and we see employees all the time that we know, wow, it's just great of this company to be able to employ someone who is dealing with those types of disabilities. But they still have to live, and they still deserve a sense of independency.
Yes.
And that's what the voc ed does. It starts while they're in school, and as they continue on and get towards graduation age, some of those same employers will employ those students because they've been able to work with them through the years, and they've seen their capacity, and they're willing to help them and continue to allow them to work and gain that independence.
That's so funny because I once saw a colleague who's also a speech therapist in the high school setting, but she was at one of the stores where I was doing a wing and donut stop. No judgment. I was like, I had my wings and my donut, and she was like, hey. But she was, one of her students was actually in that program, and she was making sure that the goals of his IEP were being met, and coaching him in that way, which I found to be the most functional way to do therapy or intervention when they're that age anyway. So, oh my gosh. So if a parent's like, okay, well, how do I start all this? What would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to go see their placement specialist at the school.
Okay.
In some districts, it's called the placement specialist. Other districts, it's called, they have different names. And the person is the one that facilitates how the IEP is built.
So in some districts, guys, that's called a staffing specialist?
Yes, some staffing, some placement specialists.
Okay.
We call them, what is it? I can't remember the name of it in my district. I'm so sorry, but they all have different names.
They do.
But they do the same job. They are the individual that starts that plan for the student. They collect the data. They get the student interest. They listen to the parent on what support they can provide. And they fashion what's called an individual education plan, the IEP. And then from there it goes into a transition plan.
Yes.
And they are the ones that facilitate that all through the student's schooling and even past schooling, because as you know, our students that are on those plans can actually stay in high school up to age 22 to help them accomplish the goals of graduation. So, yeah.
Yes, and just one more option, you guys. I know vocational rehab, which is very different, and this is a Florida-based program.
Correct.
It is not voc ed, just like Dr. Nykowanna was talking about, but vocational rehab, they also have programs for kids with disabilities to transition them into the workforce. Those do have long waiting lists. So if you are interested and you're listening to this, even if your kid is 5, I would make the call to get them on that waiting list.
Absolutely.
Okay? But Dr. Nykowanna, I thought this was amazing. Let me tell you, we always think, and our content tends to be very toddler heavy because I'm a firm believer in early intervention, but there's a misconception I think that a lot of parents have that, hey, I'm going to put the work in on the front end when they're really young, and then when they're older, I'm just going to let them fly and be independent. But what I found, even watching my sister and honestly watching you in my life, your kids, guys, are going to need you more in those adolescent, middle school, high school years. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Having sat at that table, seeing these young burgeoning adults trying to create what they want for their life and developing into the people they are going to be, that we have in our communities, the people that we're going to have maybe one day teaching our own children, the people that are going to be leading our nation eventually. Watching that happen is a beautiful thing. But watching it happen without support can be catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
Yes. They still need that guidance. However you can get in. I know they want that hands-off approach, and I know students just want to be able to have their own, they think now is the time for that independence, and it may be to a degree, but it should never be so much that you're not involved in their education. Get on that SAC committee. Get on the PTA, get involved, be the chaperone to an event, volunteer at the school, be present if you can. If you can't be present, don't release your hold. Find out, be engaged, go to the parent conferences, contact your students' teachers, be that advocate for your student, be a well-informed advocate for your student. And the only way to do that is to stay engaged. If you disengage and allow a student to surf through high school alone, it is likely your student will not excel to the potential that they really can, because they're trying to navigate it on their own. And at that age, socialization is far more important to some of them than getting an education. So it becomes imbalanced. So the parent can't let them go. You got to be there. And they're going to find a lot of pseudo parents on campus. I can't tell you how many years I was called auntie and mama and to kids I didn't birth or had shared no bloodline with, and still to this day.
Yes,
but I am simply a paraclete. I'm there, but I am not the parent.
That's it.
And that parent that can come home and enforce, and continue to reinforce what they want out of their student is priceless. You cannot let them go. Got to stay engaged.
Thank you so much. Now, guys, if there's someone listening who has an organization that could benefit from Dr. Nykowanna's wisdom, I think she's an incredible speaker. I think you're really a great resource. How can people get in touch with you?
You can reach me on my social pages as Dr. Nykowanna or Dr. Nyko, either way, and that's Nyko or Nykowanna on most of my social pages. I'm also a public school employee, so you can reach me at Osceola Technical College. I am the assistant principal there. I'm at the Central Campus, and we have a great bit of information available there. I'd love to talk to any parent that may be struggling. You can just reach out to me. I'm available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all for now, you all, but I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day whenever you're consuming this, and goodbye for now.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Let's Talk About Talking podcast with your host, Adrienne Fuller, language and communications expert for kids of all ages. You can grab Adrienne's book, 30 Days to Get Your Toddler Talking, on Amazon or at speechbuilders.org.